Punctuation, spelling, grammar, 3 words to make any budding writer shudder. All those memories of school days, English lessons, spelling tests, and those awful teachers' comments in red ink, scrawled all over those homework essays that you spent hours writing. Hi everyone, my name's Geoff Barlow and I'm one of the librarians at Gympie Regional Libraries. As well as being a librarian, I also have a passion for creative writing, and here at the Library Service we love to support our local authors. Here's a question often asked by budding writers. Are punctuation, spelling and grammar still important these days? The answer is yes, very important. It's really hard at the best of times to get your work to stand out in the so-called slush pile, which is that huge legendary bundle of manuscripts that gathers on the desk of every publisher or literary agent. And it's an unfortunate fact that only a handful of manuscripts are published each year out of thousands submitted to publishers and agents across Australia. If a publisher's reader picks up your work and finds a grammatical error on the first page, or a number of spelling mistakes in the first chapter, or random use of punctuation, it usually means you've been noticed, but for the wrong reasons. Bad grammar, spelling or punctuation will mean one thing: your wonderful story will go straight from the slush pile into the recycle bin. If it's been sent electronically, the email and its attachment will likely be deleted before you even get started. But you might be thinking, this doesn't concern me. I'm going to self-publish. Why should I conform to some pedantic publisher's standards? Well, it must be said that self-publishing is an increasingly viable option, particularly since the rise of platforms like Lulu, Ingram Spark and Amazon. Well, it must be said that self-publishing is an increasingly viable option, particularly since the rise of platforms like Lulu, Ingram Spark and Amazon, who offer both e-book and print-on-demand publication. People can order your book online, or if you want to sell copies through retailers or at special events, you can simply order as many of your books from them as you want. Gone are the days when you had to order hundreds of copies of your book from a printer before you could go out and start selling them. So if you work things well, self-publishing can certainly be a very rewarding experience. It's still hard to make big money and hit the bestseller lists, but at least you don't have to spend thousands of dollars getting a vast number of books printed and then be left with them sitting under the house. However, there is a catch in all this. Most really successful self-published books are written to a very high standard, the same standards, in fact, that apply to the commercial publishers. There are very few successful books out there that ignore the rules of punctuation, grammar and spelling. Your online success will depend on good reviews, and the reviewers on forums such as Amazon or Goodreads will generally be harsh if they start reading a book that is not well presented. A lack of care with grammar and spelling simply screams amateur, and it won't help your Goodreads profile one little bit. Okay, what do we mean by punctuation? According to the Oxford Dictionary, punctuation is defined as the marks, such as full stop, comma and brackets, used in writing to separate sentences and their elements and to clarify meaning. So, let's have a quick look at some basic punctuation rules that we do need to follow. We can't, of course, look at every rule in one day, but let's have a look at some of those that cause the most difficulty. Let's start with that much maligned and misused punctuation mark, the comma. As we'll see, a comma in the right place can make a world of difference, and we are indebted to the Transcription People website for some of the following examples. Here is an amusing example from someone's resume. Interests include shopping, cooking dogs, dancing, reading, watching movies. The missing comma after cooking makes us conjure up all sorts of possibilities which dog lovers like me won't want to think about. Commas can really clear up confusion in a sentence. Here's another example. Most of the time travellers worry about their luggage. Or try this. Most of the time, travellers worry about their luggage. In the first sentence, it sounds as if we might be talking about actual time travellers. One imagines Doctor Who worrying about whether his suitcase is going to come out of the TARDIS in good shape. Okay, here's a really important one, particularly for any budding novelist who wants to use dialogue and conversation convincingly and to show rather than tell key elements of their story and its characters, rather than using reams of description. This one is called the vocative comma, and it's so important that publishers and editors insist on its use. It must be used whenever a character is addressing another person or groups of people, because if the vocative comma is missing in action, your sentences can become confusing for the reader. Think about the difference between these two lines of dialogue. We're going to learn to cut and paste kids, as opposed to we're going to learn to cut and paste kids. Or how about this example? Let's eat grandma versus let's eat grandma. I think we can agree, very big differences in meaning. And here's another one. I don't know, Bob. Or, I don't know, Bob. Again, a great difference in meaning. In the first sentence, you're telling someone that you don't know Bob. In the second, you are talking to Bob and telling him that you don't know something. We can see from the above examples just how important the vocative comma is, and how its inclusion or absence completely changes the meaning of a sentence. As the Writer's Dictionary website points out, the vocative comma is used whenever the speaker is addressing a specific person or persons. So, if you're writing dialogue, keep in mind that when your speaker directly addresses another story character, that person's name must be offset by commas. Let's look at some examples. Do you follow me, William? Note that when the name of the addressee is at the end of the sentence, the vocative comma precedes the name, with normal end punctuation for the sentence, a question mark in this instance. Gillian, look at this. The addressee's name is at the start of the sentence here, so the vocative comma follows the person's name. I am afraid, Watson, that I shall have to go. Note that in this instance, which is actually the dramatic first line from the classic Sherlock Holmes short story Silver Blaze, the comma is used both before and after the addressee's name, as the name occurs mid-sentence. Here's another example from a great contemporary thriller writer. You watch yourself, cowboy, the bellhop said. In this line from the Virgil Flowers thriller Heat Lightning by John Sandford, it's worth noting that once again we have a comma before and after the addressee's nickname, in this case because the dialogue does not actually end the sentence. As we can see, the main function of the vocative comma is to separate the person or thing being addressed from the rest of the sentence, and that function is really important. Moving on now, let's look at one of the most debated punctuation marks of all time, the Oxford comma. The Oxford comma is an optional comma before the word and at the end of a list, as in this example. Please bring me a cup, saucer, and spoon. Now, many people hate the Oxford comma and refuse to use it. They argue that the comma is redundant if you use the word and. However, as we'll see, the Oxford comma can be very handy at times. It has traditionally been used by printers, readers and editors at the Oxford University Press, hence the name. While it isn't standard protocol for all writers and publishers, it can certainly clarify the meaning of a sentence when the items in a list are not single words. For example, these scarves are available in black and white, pink and purple, and blue and green. Omitting the Oxford comma can also result in some very odd misunderstandings, as in this example. I love my parents, Kylie Minogue and Kermit the Frog. Without the Oxford comma, the sentence above could be interpreted as stating that you love your parents and your parents are Kylie Minogue and Kermit the Frog. Here is the same sentence with the Oxford comma. I love my parents, Kylie Minogue and Kermit the Frog. So the Oxford comma has made the meaning of the sentence clear. Remember though, it's best to check your chosen publisher's style guide before submitting any manuscript. Some of them like the Oxford comma almost everywhere, while some don't like it. Let's look now at another much debated and much misused punctuation mark. Enter the humble apostrophe. More specifically perhaps, let's look at the greengrocer's apostrophe. Now, I should explain that I don't want to run down or stereotype any industry. I used to run a fruit and vegetable store many years ago, and I really don't think we should brand a whole profession or industry with a name like that. However, we do tend to see examples like this around shop windows occasionally, and that's where the name greengrocer's apostrophe came from. Perhaps we should just call it the unneeded apostrophe. How many times have we seen this on a hand-painted sign, or even on the internet for that matter? Potatoes, onions, carrots. Sorry, no apostrophe is needed for any of these. Just because something is plural or has an S on the end doesn't mean that it needs an apostrophe. However, there are places where an apostrophe does need to be used. Okay, here are some examples. The apostrophe should generally be used for possessive case, as in the dog's bone, the woman's car. It should also be used for contractions of two words, such as he's gone to town, meaning he has gone to town. We've got a new TV, as in we have got a new TV. Don't say that. A contraction of do not say that. It's going to be fun, meaning it is going to be fun. And that last example brings up the strange case of the possessive case of pronouns such as it. The possessive case of it is simply its, its, not it apostrophe s, e.g. the dog picked up its bone. If you're confused, there are some great books around on the everyday use of punctuation. One of the best books is this one, The Style Manual of the Australian Government. It is now in its 6th edition, published by John Wiley and Sons, and copies are available in the library. So look up pages 85 to 88 to get the last word on the apostrophe. Search around in the index and you'll find the rules of best practice for all punctuation marks. If we're up for it, let's look at grammar and spelling on another day. And keep in mind that we do have a lot of help from our computers these days in getting spelling and grammar right, although the spell check and grammar check programs aren't perfect. And remember, all these topics might sound just a little bit boring compared with telling a good, riveting story, but they are vital for clarity of expression and getting your meaning across to your readers. And let's face it, that's what we want to do whenever we pick up our pen, open up our computer, or open up a book to read. Until next time, take care everyone.